Assalamu alaikum. Today, inshallah, we are going to continue our lesson, chapter 9, the economic growth, part 2, the technology and technological progress and its empirics and the policies. We finished the first part about the technological progress and its effects to the economic growth, as we saw before in chapter 8, according to Solo model, how the change in the capital through saving and investment and the changes in the labor force through population growth affects the economy's output and economic growth. And also we started to see the third source of growth, of economic growth, about the changes in technology and how this mix together the technology, the capital, the labor force in the Solo model affects the economy's output and economic growth. So as we know how to incorporate the technological progress in this in the Solo model, then we will see some policies to promote the economic growth and the growth empirics, confronting the theory with the facts, as we used to with these theoretical assumptions in the model is real, right, in the facts in the real world or not. And we will see also two simple models different than Solo model, in which the rate of technological progress is endogenous, not exogenous like the Solo model. So we finished this part. We don't need to waste more time on this. Let's move to, yes, here we talk about technological progress in the Solo model in the previous lesson. Just remember, we have the new variable E for labor efficiency, and that assumes that technological progress is labor augmenting, which means it increases the labor efficiency. When the technological progress increase, the labor efficiency increase at the exogenous rate of G. Okay, so we have G for the labor augmenting technological progress. Okay, and we saw here the technological progress in the Solo model, the labor augmenting technological progress at rate G enters our analysis of the Solo growth model in much the same way as did population growth at rate N, as we saw before. So now then that K, the capital per worker, is defined as the amounts of capital the amount of capital per effective worker. So the K that we defined before at the amount of capital now it will be for effective worker, as we are talking about the efficiency of labor and so on, increases in the effective number of workers because of the technological progress tend to decrease the capital per worker. In the steady state, investment exactly offsets the reductions in the capital per worker attributable to depreciation and population growth and technological progress. So finally, with the addition of the technological progress, as we saw in our model, besides the capital and the labor force, we can explain the sustained increases in the standard of living that we observe. That is, we have shown that technological progress can lead to sustained growth in output per worker, and by contrast, a high rate of saving leads to high rate of growth only until the steady state is reached. Once the economy is in the steady state, the rate of technological progress. According to the Solo model, only technological progress can explain sustained growth and persistently rising living standards. So let's move to the next topic. Now, as Solo model's steady state exhibits the balanced growth. When we talk about the growth empirics, Solo model steady state exhibits the balanced growth as many variables grow at the same time. As Solo model predicts that the output per worker and the capital per worker grow at the same rate, which is G, the augmented labor or technological growth, and so on. So this is true in the real world, right? And Solo model also predicts that real wage grows at the same rate as the output per worker, while the real renter price is constant, which is also true in the real world, as we saw in the previous lesson. So let's talk about the convergence. Convergence means to be near or close to each other or so on. So Solo model predicts that other things equal. Poor countries, and it predicts that when other things equal, poor countries with lower output per worker and capital per worker should grow faster than rich countries. This is the prediction of Solo model. Is this right or not? If true, then the income gap between rich and poor countries would shrink over time, causing living standards to converge. This happens or not? In the real world, many poor countries do not grow faster than rich ones. Does this mean that Solo model fails? I don't know. I don't think so. Because Solo model predicts other things remaining equal. So it's no, because other things are not equal in the real world. In samples of countries, in some countries, similar savings and population growth rates, income gaps shrink about 2% per year. In other countries, which is the majority, after controlling for differences in saving and population growth and human capital, incomes converge by about 2% per year. So what Solo model really predicts is not convergence, but conditional convergence. Conditional convergence means countries converge to their own steady states, which are determined by saving, population growth, and education. So this prediction comes true in the real. Again, some empirics, we can talk about the factor accumulation versus the production efficiency. The difference in income per capita and income per person different among countries can be due to some differences in capital, maybe physical capital or human capital per worker. Also the efficiency of production, which means the height of production function. So studies tell us that both factors are important, the capital and the efficiency of your production. Both of them are important for what? For the difference in the income per capita in the different countries. And the two factors also, efficiency of production and capital per worker, two factors are correlated together, as countries with higher physical or human capital per worker also tend to have higher production efficiency, which is logic. So some possible explanations for the correlation between capital per worker and production efficiency, that production efficiency encourages capital accumulation. Also, capital accumulation has externalities that raise the efficiency. The third one is unknown variable causes capital accumulation and efficiency to be higher in some countries than others. What this variable is the free trade. So now we can see the production efficiency and the free trade. Since Adam Smith, the economists have argued that free trade can increase the production efficiency and the living standard. So research by two economists, Sachs and Warner, see that the average annual growth rate in a period of time different from open economies to closed economies. And we can see in the developed nations, the open economy growth rate was 2.3%. In the closed economy, it is 0.7%. Also in the developing nations, the annual growth rate, the average annual growth rate was 4.5%, but in the closed economy of the developing nation was 0.7% only. So we can here see how the free trade affects and increase the production efficiency and the living standards and the total output and income. So determine the causation. Other economists explore geographic differences. Why? The causation. The geographic differences among countries may affect the differences in the free trade and also for the production efficiency and so on. Maybe some nations trade less because they are farther from other nations. Yani I can make free trade or exchange trade with a near country. It will be less costly and so on. Or some countries may be landlocked, like Uzbekistan, for example. There is no seas or oceans or so on, or any ports. Also, such geographical differences are correlated with trade, but not with other determinants of income. Hence, they can be used to isolate the impact of trade on income. So the findings of this research that increasing trade per GDP, or the ratio between trade and GDP, by 2% causes GDP per capita to rise 1% when the other things remaining the same. This is the some empirics of the Solo model and the three variables that we now let's see some policies to promote the growth. Some policies like, are we safe enough? We're talking about the country, the government, saving enough or too much. What policies might change the saving rates? If we are saving too much, how can we reduce saving? Or if we are saving little, so how to increase savings? How should we allocate our investment between privately owned physical capital and public infrastructure, human capital? All these policies that governments should think about and apply to promote the economic growth. How do a country's institutions affect production efficiency and capital accumulation? It's also important. What policies might encourage faster technological progress? Okay, so first, evaluating the rate of saving. Using the golden rule to determine whether the United States, for example, savings of the United States rate, the saving rate of the United States and the capital stock are too high or too low or about right. So we have to evaluate it first. So in this case, if the marginal product for capital minus the depreciation rate is more than the N plus G, or the population growth rate plus the technological progress rate, so the United States in this case is below the golden rule, steady state, and should increase their saving. But if the marginal product per capita minus the depreciation rate is less than the the population growth rate plus the technological progress rate of growth, so in this case, the United States economy is above the golden rule, steady state, and should reduce the saving. So we can use to estimate to use these three facts about the US economy. For example, the capital stock is about 2.5 times 1 year's GDP, and the about 10% of GDP is used to replace depreciation capital, and the capital income is about 30% of GDP. So using this data to determine the depreciation rate according to this, so we can find it's a 4%. Also to determine the marginal product capital, so it will be 12%. So 12% minus the 4% will be 8%. Then we can see the US real GDP grows an average of 3% per year. So the M plus G is 3%. So we have now the marginal product per capita minus depreciation rate is greater than it's 8%, greater than 3%, the N plus G. So conclusion that the US is below the golden rule, as we said at the beginning. It's below the golden rule steady state, as increasing the US saving in this case, increasing the US saving rate would increase the consumption per capita in the long run. Okay, now we evaluated the saving rate. How to increase the saving rate? By reducing the government budget deficit or increasing the budget surplus, for example, increasing the incentives for private serving. How? By reducing capital gains tax, corporate income tax, estate tax as they discourage saving, increasing the incentives for private saving. When the government reduce taxes for me, so I will have more savings. Replace the federal income tax with a consumption tax. Expand tax incentives for individual retirement accounts and other retirement savings accounts. Okay, this is about the saving rates and how to evaluate and increase them. Then another policy issue, which is allocating the economy's investments. In the sole model, there is one type of capital, but in the real world, there are many types, which we can divide into three categories: the private capital stock, the public infrastructure, and the human capital, which is the knowledge and skills that workers acquire through education. So how should we allocate investment among these types of capital? There's two viewpoints. One, to equalize tax treatment of all types of capital in all industries, then let the market allocate investment to the type with the highest marginal product. And the other is industrial policy, as government should actively encourage investment in capital of certain types or in certain industries, because they may have positive externalities that private investors don't consider. There's some possible problems with this industrial policy, as the government may not have the ability to pick winners or to choose the industries with the highest return to capital or biggest externalities. Also, politics like campaign contributions rather than economics may influence which industries get preferential treatment. The third thing, or the third issue in the policy issues, establishing the right institutions. The right institutions. We can see the difference in this photo between North Korea and South Korea, and we know, according to our knowledge about their economic situation and the growth rate and so on, and the income per capita for each country. So creating the right institutions is important for ensuring that resources are allocated to their best uses. How? By the legal institutions, for example, to protect property rights, the capital markets to help financial capital flow to best investment projects. Also, a corruption-free government to promote competition, enforce contracts, etc. So we can see here from this photo the difference between North Korea, which takes the model of the Soviet Union and communism and so on, and South Korea, which takes the American model of capitalism and so on. Now we can see the growth rate of South Korea is more than North Korea, and also the standard of living of the people of South Korea is more than the North Korea, and so on. So choosing the right institutions and the right system and so on is very important for the economic growth and promotion. Another issue that the governments take into account in the policy, the encouraging the technological progress. Encouraging technological progress, as when we talk about the patent laws, encouraging innovation by granting temporary monopolies to inventors of new products, also tax incentives for research and development, grants to fund basic research at universities, also industrial policies like encouraging the specific industries that are key for rapid technological progress. You can see here this case study. You can read about it in details in the textbook. As the productivity slowed down, we can see here the growth in output per person in different countries like Canada, for example, in 1948 to 1972, it was 2.9, but in 1972 to 1995, it's decreased or slowed down to 1.8. So we can see here the productivity slowed down. Why? There's some possible explanations like the measurement problems. Maybe productivity increases not fully measured, or oil prices, like oil shocks occurred about when productivity slowdown began. Okay, also the workers' quality, as in 1970s, large influx of new entrants into labor force like baby boomers or women. These new workers tend to be less productive than the experienced workers. And also the depletion of ideas, as perhaps the slow growth of 1972 to 1995 is normal, and the rapid growth during the 48 to 72 is the anomaly one. So all of them as plausible, but it's difficult to prove that any of one of these explanation of them is guilty. So we can see the information technology, the IT, and the new economy, how it affects the productivity. As we can see here, it's after the 1995, it began to get faster again. Apparently, the computer revolution didn't affect the aggregate productivity until the mid of the 19th. There's two reasons for that. First, computer industry's share of GDP much bigger in late 19th than earlier. Also, it takes time for firms to determine how to utilize new technology most effectively. But now the big open question is, how long will the information technology remain an engine of growth? So now we finished the solo model and its empirics in the real life and some governmental policies. We have now some to beyond the solo model, some indigenous growth theory. Let's have a look in quickly, and you can see it in details in the text book. As we know, in the solo model, sustained growth in living standards is due to technological progress, and the rate of technological progress is exogenous. But indigenous growth theory says that a set of models in which the growth rate of productivity and living standards is endogenous. The basic model here we can see the production function, where A capital is the amount of output for each unit of A capital, the amount of output for each unit of capital. So the key difference here between this model and solo models is that the MPK, or the marginal product of capital, is constant here. But in the solo model, if you remember, Z was diminishing in the solo. So we have investment, depreciation, equation of the motion of total capital also. So in this case, if the we can see here the amount of saving more than the depreciation rate, then income will grow forever, and investment is the engine of growth. Here, the permanent growth rate depends on saving, but in solo model, it doesn't. So does capital have diminishing returns or not? Depends on the definition of capital. If capital is narrowly defined, and it's only about plant and equipment, then yes, it's diminishing. But advocates of endogenous growth theory argue that knowledge is a type of capital also. It's not only plants or equipment. So then constant returns to capital is more plausible. And this model may be a good description of economic growth. Another model is a two-sector model. Two sectors which are manufacturing, firms produce goods, and research universities produce knowledge. that increases labor efficiency in manufacturing. So U here is for fraction of labor in research, and we have the manufacturing production function and research production function and the capital accumulation. In the steady state, the manufacturing output per worker and the standard of living grow at rate, and the key variables here is saving affects the level of income, but not its growth rate as the solo model, and U affects the level and growth rate of income. So in this case, what would an increase in U be unambiguously good for the economy or not? We have some facts about research and development. First, much research is done by firms seeking profits. Also, firms profits from research by patents create a stream of monopoly profits, extra profit from being first on the market with a new product. Also, innovation produces externalities that reduce cost of subsequent innovation. So much of the new endogenous growth theory attempts to incorporate these facts into models to better understand the technological progress. So is the private sector doing enough for the research and development? We can see the existence of positive externalities in the creation of knowledge suggests that the private sector is not doing enough research and development, but there is much duplication of research and development effort among competing firms. Maybe they are doing the same at the same time. So estimates say that social return to research and development is equal or more than 40% per year. Thus, many believe government should encourage research and development more. So another concept, the creative distraction here, related to the economic growth. One of the economists coined the term creative distraction to describe the displacement resulting from technological progress, as the introduction of a new product is good for consumers, but often it's bad for the competing producers who may be forced to go out from the market. Okay. So now we finished the second chapter in economic growth, and we finished now this part of the growth theory, the economy in the very long run. We saw in this chapter the key results for solo model with the technological progress. The steady state growth rate of income per person depends on the exogenous rate of the technological progress. Also, the United States has much less capital than the golden rule steady state. We saw also the ways to increase the saving rate, how to increase the public saving, reduce the budget deficit, tax incentives for private saving. Also, we saw the productivity slowdown and the new economy. At the early 70s, the productivity growth fell in the United States and other countries. In the middle of 90s, productivity growth increased, probably because of the advances in the information technology. Also, we saw some empirical studies. So the model explains balanced growth, conditional convergence, cross-country variation in living standards is due to the difference in capital accumulation and production efficiency. Also, endogenous growth theory. We saw the models that examine the determinants of the rate of technological progress which solo takes as given. Also explain decisions that determine the creation of knowledge through the research and development. So now we finished this chapter. Next lesson, inshallah, next week we will start our last part of the macroeconomic course about the economy in the short run. So thank you so much. See you next lesson, inshallah. Goodbye and good luck.